We knew this would come very quickly today, tomorrow, whenever, after we've heard the news of the last couple of days and the word coming down just a few minutes ago from the family that the legendary Joe Paterno has passed away at the age of 85. Nobody will ever know how much the Sandusky scandal took, how many years, if any, it robbed from Joe Paterno. There was no question that he made some serious errors in judgment here. There is no question that he made some terrible mistakes here. Clearly, that obviously changed the direction of his life, the way he unceremoniously was relieved of his duties at a school where he had spent 61 years, had been the head coach for 46 years, and had probably been more recognized as the face of a university than probably anybody this side of Newt Rockne at Notre Dame. Penn State is Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno is and always will be Penn State. And clearly, we don't still know, and his interview in the Washington Post did nothing to clear up anything about what we don't know. And it may be a while till we find out exactly what he did and didn't do here. And clearly, he admitted he didn't do more. He should have done more. And admitted he didn't handle it well. And I don't think he was forthcoming about a lot of the stuff. He probably just couldn't be. This was a good man, though, folks, who made a terrible mistake at the end of his life. And made it in the last 10 years. And I don't know why he did. He may carry that with him. And do I think this probably escalated his demise? I think clearly it did. I think to deal with the stress he had to be dealing with. Think about the fall from grace that he experienced. He experienced one of the most dramatic falls from grace that I have ever seen or we have ever witnessed in American life. He was probably as revered as any single person has been in American sport in a very long time. And that all was ripped from him in one fell swoop. And again, I don't think Penn State had any choice. I think the errors of his judgment were that bad. So I'm not trying to vindicate him here now in his death. I'm not trying to do that. What you try to do today is balance who he was with that very sad ending. And for a time here, for a minute, you put aside that sad ending and recognize what he did do. Joe Paterno, Brooklyn born, went to Brooklyn Prep, went to the Army, came out of the Army, went to Brown. Played two ways at Brown, played as a bow-legged quarterback for Rip Engel, and played cornerback and quarterback for Rip Engel at Brown. Followed his college coach, Rip Engel, to Penn State, where he became an assistant under Rip Engel. And when Rip Engel left, Joe Paterno in 1966 became the head coach of Penn State, and Penn State was transformed from a school that was a nice Eastern school to a school that became symbolic for brilliant defense, linebacker U, an ability to formulate incredible defensive game plans, especially in bowl games. Undefeated seasons that were not treated well by the national media. Nixon once picking Texas over an undefeated, untied Penn State team for the national championship, which irked Paterno. 5 untied, unbeaten teams. 2 national championships. More bowl wins. When I think back to Penn State, I think back to the Penn State, which you knew if he went to a bowl game, Paterno, and yes, Sandusky, were going to find a way to devise a defense to take away whatever that great offense they were facing brought to the table, whether it was against Kansas, whether it was against Miami. And that was what you thought about. When you think back to Penn State football under Paterno, you think about guys who were a team in the greatest sense of the word. No one cared who got the credit. No names on the back. No flashy play. The old-fashioned uniforms. The old-fashioned shoes. The coach with his white socks and his shoe and his pants rolled up, as he said, to save on cleaning bills. The tradition that he brought, the image that he brought, and the image of academics before athletics, and all the things he brought that everyone thought was the Paterno way. And, you know, he was called the Pope, and he was called the Conscience, and he was Joe Pa, and he was, you know, holier than thou. And he had a lot of people that, you know, he said a lot of things about him behind his back because they thought he was, you know, too tough to take. You know, nobody that perfect. And I'm sure a lot of people, although they were horrified with the Sandusky scandal and what it stood for, people probably felt, you see, nobody's as perfect as, and I heard that from some coaches, see, nobody's as perfect as everyone made him out to be. And maybe they were right. Because he did show that at a very important juncture, he wasn't prepared to do good over evil, or he allowed evil to persist when he could have stopped it. Evil persists when good men do nothing. In this case, Joe Paterno did nothing, or at least not enough. And clearly, he carried that to his grave. It may have actually escalated his march there, as a matter of fact. Because clearly, I mean, I've made this point many times, the stress he had to be under had to be enormous. When you have lived your life to create this image, and lived your life to create this, you know, his shining city. That's what he created. He, you know, in a way, he was Arthur, okay? That was his Camelot. He had created his vision of what football nirvana was, the way it was run at his school, his way, where he didn't care how much money he made. He donated most of it. He'd only do a Burger King commercial if the money went to the school. He gave money to the library. He, you know, went and spoke at English lit classes and all the things you heard about. And that's what made the news about his role in the Sandusky scandal so hard to take, so hard to fathom, so hard to justify.